at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We gotta unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped. Enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Thursday, July 18th. I'm Dean Obeidallah, back from 3 days, hoping still to be your MBFF. Thanks to Naira Hawk for being here for 3 days and doing a great job. I didn't really have a vacation, folks, because of Donald Trump. And that's fine, because what was going on required to take time away from a vacation to write an article for the Daily Beast slamming Trump's bigotry and racism and doing a lot on Twitter. And that's the world we live in. There's no vacation from fascism. There's no vacation from authoritarians. There's no vacation from saving our country. And I say it with all sincerity. I think we all have to play a role, even small roles, big roles, whatever you do. You can sense from this week what happened. And I watch it from the Jersey Shore play out on Twitter and on clips. And you can feel, at least I can, and I bet you can too, we are certainly at a crossroads for this country. There's a big decision which way this nation's going to go. Will it go to Trump's values or to American values? And that's the contrast between Trump's values and American values. And if Trump wins, does he change? Does he reform American values the way he's reformed the GOP into rejecting what they were really about and embracing white supremacy? Does that happen in this nation? So this is really a fight against white supremacy. And, you know, before we go through, because I wasn't here the first 3 days of the week, obviously, I want to touch on a few things that troubled me a lot, and I want to get your reaction. Obviously, we'll play something from last night's Unite the White rally that Donald Trump had in North Carolina. But we can all play a role, even a small role, in this fight that's going to happen, that you see it. It's right here in front of us, a gathering storm. It's up to us to step forward. And I'll just share two small clips, quotes about how we can play this role. And Martin Luther King said it too, and RFK. Martin Luther King said that if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. And that's, we must all do that. Whatever it might be, tweeting, posting on Facebook, getting involved, making phone calls, running for office, raising money, everything. Whatever you can do, we have to do. And then a lot of times I always talk to people who say, well, I'm not sure if what I'm doing is making a difference or having an impact. And there's a great quote by RFK that I've read a few times in the past I like very much, where he said, few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. And in the total of all those acts will be written the history of this generation. And I've said this before, this generation that we are right now, it's not one defined by age. It's unique. It's not by age. It can be any age. It's a generation defined by values. Do you subscribe to American values or Trump values? Trump values are cruelty, demonizing minorities, demonizing Muslims, the LGBT community, discriminating against them, mocking a disabled reporter, sexually assaulting women and calling them liars when they come forward. That's Trump's values. They're not American values, not yet. Or do you subscribe to American values? And that's this fight of this generation. We may end up being the new greatest generation. And I say that with all sincerity. The greatest generation, World War II, I get that. But I think now this is our World War II with Donald Trump. We are fighting against fascism like the brave men and women of America who all chipped in with the Allies against the threat of the Axis powers. The Axis powers are now Trump and Putin, maybe MBS in Saudi, Sisi. And that's what we're dealing with. So we all have to play a role. And I will tell you my top line views that Trump, the word Trump is no longer a name. Trump is now a shorthand symbol for hate. If someone tells you they support Trump, they don't mean it in a sense of supporting conservative values or the GOP. They mean they support racism and white supremacy and bigotry and sexism. That's it. If you wear a MAGA hat now in public, you are a racist, period. And you're telling us that. You're telling us you're proud to be a racist. That's your choice. In America, as opposed to Trump, you can disagree with me. You don't have to leave the country, but that's the stakes. That's our fight. Who will win this fight? Only one of us can win this. You know that. Who is it going to be? After November 3rd, 2020, when the votes are counted, who do you want to win? The white supremacy of Donald Trump or us? American values. A pluralism and tolerance and compassion and caring. The 3 words on the Great Seal in Latin mean so much to me. E pluribus unum. From many one. That's what the founders, and yep, it was white supremacists, they had slavery as part of the Constitution, but still they had a sense that maybe one day this nation truly would live up to that. E pluribus unum. From many one. Trump does not believe in that. It's not an exaggeration. He doesn't believe in it. And we saw it this week. So let's go through some of the stuff and what happened today with Trump. And then I really want to hear from you. I've not been here the last 3 days. Didn't listen to the show. I'm trying to relax, although I was overwhelmed by other media. And I really want to hear what people have to think. But obviously it started Sunday with Donald Trump tweeting about the 4 women of color, 2 African Americans, 1 Latina, and Arab American, Palestinian American like myself, Rashida Tlaib, and about they can go back and help fix their countries. So go back to their countries. And I was on CNN Sunday before I went away with Ana Cabrera, and I like Ana. I go on periodically with Ana. And I said, how many times have we had this conversation since 2015 about Donald Trump and his bigotry and racism? Because me and Ana have had it countless times. And she shared, which made some press, her own personal stories of people yelling at her because she's a woman of color, go back to your country. And she's born here. We all know, go back to your country. If anyone says in the real world, wherever you are, forget politics, you're at a store and someone's buying something and someone's being rude and they say to the guy behind the counter, go back to your country. You know that person's being racist. We know that. There's no game. Person's being racist. Go back to your country. We know that. That's a touchstone of racism and bigotry. There's no debate. There's not 2 sides. There's no subject to interpretation. That's what it means. We all know what it means. And then Trump doubled down with other tweets. He did one and all in caps. If you are not happy here, you can leave. Trump, like the dictator, the fascist, like the authoritarian he is trying, and this is really dangerous here in the big picture, folks, he's trying to define love of America with complete loyalty to Donald Trump. And if you question Trump, somehow you're an unpatriotic American, when in reality, dissent is the highest form of patriotism. We know that. We wouldn't have a country if there wasn't dissent by the framers of the Constitution, the founding fathers and the revolutionaries. We would be a British place. I don't know what we'd be. Maybe we've gotten free at some point. But Trump wants to define what is American values and what is patriotic. And if you dare mock him, you don't love this country. Now, we heard others, and people remember this. If you're older, love it or leave it. We've heard the right-wing people say that before. It's sort of like a snarky comment. But when you intertwine that love it or leave it with Donald Trump's white supremacy and his racism, especially directed at 4 women of color, you understand there's something more insidious, something more sinister at play. And that's what Trump is about. And, you know, Trump, and I'll play just a couple of clips, and I want to clear up one thing factually, because I really wasn't, I was just reading stuff online. I'm not sure how good of a job the media did in pushing back against Donald Trump's lie that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar supports Al-Qaeda. And they may have just dismissed it as a piece of garbage, but I really want to play the actual audio from an interview where the right-wing people all take this from, because they took it out of context on purpose. I'll play it to you for a minute and 10 seconds with the context, and you'll know exactly what it's about. And not that Trump matters, it's about lies, but saying a member of Congress or any American Muslim supports terrorism is a horrific smear. It's a vile smear. So here's first Trump talking about Congressman Omar, who he has really made the center point of his attacks. Because think about it, folks. She is so much of what the Trump base hates. She's Muslim. Don't forget, Donald Trump called for a total complete shutdown of Muslims coming to the country, and 65% of GOP voters in 2016 agreed with a total ban on Muslims. Black people, they're not a fan of that either. Women, not big fans. Immigrants, especially not a big fan. So here's Trump. We cut it together, but it's completely context. Donald Trump slamming Congressman Omar as supporting Al-Qaeda. And listen very carefully. He does an impression of her and stuff as if she said this stuff. Let's hear clip number 1, please.
They're very unhappy. I'm watching them. All they do is complain. So all I'm saying is, if they want to leave, they can leave, John. They can leave. I mean, I look at Omar. I don't know. I never met her. I hear the way she talks about Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda has killed many Americans. She said, you can hold your chest out. You can, when I think of America, when I think of Al-Qaeda, I can hold my chest out. When she talked about the World Trade Center being knocked down, some people, you remember the famous some people. These are people that, in my opinion, hate our country. Now, you can say what you want, but get a list of all of the statements they've made. And all I'm saying that if they're not happy here, they can leave. A politician that hears somebody where we're at war with Al-Qaeda and sees somebody talking about how great Al-Qaeda is, pick out her statement. That was Omar. How great Al-Qaeda is. When you hear that, and we're losing great soldiers to Al-Qaeda, when you see the World Trade Center gets knocked down, and you see the statements made about the World Trade Center, all the death and destruction, I'll tell you what, I'm not happy with them.
If you believe Donald Trump, that Congressman Omar supports Al-Qaeda and was proud of Al-Qaeda and hates America, would you not want to kill her? I mean, let's be blunt. Would you not want to kill her? Trump knows that. Now, these are lies, what he said. He knows he's lying. That's what makes Donald Trump so evil. And evil is the right word for this man. It's beyond political discussions now or debate. This is an evil man. I want to play for you the clip that the people on the right have shared out of context, where she's, in their view, somehow talking about Al-Qaeda being great and America sucking. It's from 2013, a local TV interview in Minnesota. I've seen it because people have sent it to me 6 months ago. Look, what's going on with Omar? Why does she love Al-Qaeda? And they've done this on purpose. Here's the real clip, and you hear what she's talking about here. And by the way, before she got to this point, she talks about Al-Qaeda and Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab is the Somali-based group that's tied to Al-Qaeda. She calls them evil, evil people, and heinous. Words that Trump has never used to describe white supremacists ever. They're fine people. So here is the interview, and the very thing. Listen to when Congressman Omar, then not a congressman, not even a state representative, just an activist, talks about Al-Qaeda and the idea of bragging about Al-Qaeda. And here it is, clip number 2.
The thing that was interesting in the class was every time the professor said Al-Qaeda, he sort of like his shoulders went up, and it was
he's in command here.
Al-Qaeda, Hasbullah.
He's an expert.
And it was,
What's his name? What put his name on there?
We
Where
are
does he
not
live?
saying his name.
Yeah.
You probably get to see him on CNN.
Well, yeah, of course. I love those guys.
But it is that you don't say America with an intensity. You don't say England with an intensity. You don't say the army with an intensity.
Qaeda.
But you say these names because you want that word to carry weight. You want it to leave something with
it has a cultural meaning, not just
hearing, exactly.
Meaning.
So it's said with a deeper voice. So yes, it is. A lot of it is diluted. I think when you hear a lot of people speaking in Arabic, suspicion arises. People start to pay attention and think, what must Baby talking
if it's
about?
Arabic, must be bad.
Yeah.
So her whole point was about sensationalism, that the media uses the Arabic words for scary things, doesn't translate them to English. And this college professor, that she had a college professor, for some reason would talk about normal things, but when he got to Al-Qaeda, he did it. He was the one that puffed his chest out. He was the one that brought his shoulders out. Not that he was bragging about it, but to try to make the point that he could say a word in Arabic and that it was so important. Everyone should be taking this down. This is extremely important. But when she talked about other things, people were not saying it like that. And her fear was that the use of Arabic becomes synonymous with something sinister and scary. And to back that up, at the time, there were people getting thrown off airplanes for saying one word in Arabic. They were asked to leave the plane. The police have been called on people, and this was 2013, it continues to this day, for having books in Arabic walking around. And you've had instances like that. And I wrote about it for Daily Beast. If you're interested, you can see it on my Twitter feed about that very thing. So there was nothing, she was never saying, she walks around and puffs out her chest about Al-Qaeda. She's making fun of a professor for over-articulating, for over-sensationalizing the word Al-Qaeda. And that her fear was that people were going to think Arabic equals sinister and scary. And that was her point. That's clearly her point. He knows what it means. But Donald Trump calling a Muslim woman or a Muslim a terrorist to smear them is instantly familiar to me, because I, personally, have dealt with Trump-loving neo-Nazis who did the same thing to me. For the same reason, he tried to smear Congressman Omar, because we both dared to criticize Donald Trump. So in my case, the Daily Stormer, the neo-Nazi publication that wrote over 100 articles praising Donald Trump during the campaign, and Andrew Englund, I won't go through it all, we all know the story if you listen to the show, came after me. They fabricated tweets, said I was involved in terrorism. I got death threats. They incited them, just like Trump is doing with Omar. And I sued them and won a judgment just last month for $4 million, which we may or may never collect, but that's not the point. The point is to stand up to bigots and neo-Nazis. Donald Trump is literally copying neo-Nazis here. He is literally copying neo-Nazis who love Trump by smearing a Muslim by saying they are a terrorist. And then we get to last night, where Donald Trump's Unite the White rally, where there he is, and the crowd of thousands of people begin organically cheering, "Send her back." And here's clip number 3.
Obviously and importantly, Omar has a history of launching vicious anti-Semitic screeds.
So that's what happened last night. Send her back. Send her back. Went from lock her up to send her back. The idea of telling a black woman to go back to Africa, a crowd of white people are cheering. If you're black, how does that make you feel to hear a crowd of white people cheering that a black woman should go back to Africa? Because I'm really curious, because I've never heard this in my entire life. I've heard racists say that. I've seen it written on Facebook posts or on hateful stuff on Twitter, send black people back to Africa. I've heard people over the years say that kind of garbage, but never a president of the United States there encouraging his crowd to cheer, "Send her back." And then today, because he got pushback by a few Republicans who were like, "Hey, we love bigotry and white supremacy, but you went too far with that one. So can't you go and pretend to the media that you didn't like what you heard?" And I'll play a little bit of this. He gave 2 responses that he asked about to send her back, and he wasn't happy with it. He doesn't denounce it. He just wasn't happy with it. I guess they left out things. Here's clip number 3 from today. Oh, no, clip number 4. I'm sorry, clip 4.
I have tremendous support, and I wasn't happy with that message that they gave last night, but that was a packed arena. We could have sold an arena. We could have sold 10 of those arenas last night. There were tremendous numbers of people that couldn't get in. We had outside thousands and thousands of people, and we had thousands and thousands of people that wanted to come, and we said, "Please don't come." It held 10,000 people.
They went on and on. If he really didn't want them to say that, why wouldn't he just say, "Hey, it was horrible. It was terrible. They should never do it again." So he went on, and then they was asked again. And here's his same bullshit answer. Here's clip number 5.
Why did they do it? You'd have to ask them. You'd have to ask them, John. What I would suggest I was not happy with it, but what I would suggest, you go there, go to North Carolina, and you ask the people, why did they say that? But that's what they said. That's what they did.
If they try to do it again.
Well, I didn't like that they did it, and I started speaking very quickly. I could have stood back. Excuse me. Well, really, if you would have heard, there was a tremendous amount of noise and action and everything else. I started very quickly, and I think you know that. Well, I know maybe you're giving me too much credit. You're used to giving me too much credit. Thank you, everybody.
When Trump doesn't like something, he's not subtle about it. He will tell you it is horrible, despicable, vile, loser, sick, every other word out there, un-American. In this case, very calm, measured Donald Trump. Why don't you ask the people in North Carolina? And by the way, you heard the clip, I just played it. He did not rush. He let them. He enjoyed it. Go watch the video online. He enjoyed the moment of him cheering, "Send her back." He had his crowd exactly where he wants. He has them in a furor. And you know what? Here's the worst thing of all. And Trump tweeted this yesterday, and he's actually correct, that the Rasmussen poll, which is a daily tracking poll, which oversamples Republicans, and I look at it for more Republican support of Donald Trump, since he began this racist white supremacist attack on 4 women of color, telling them to go back to Africa, go back to Palestine, go back to Puerto Rico, he's gone up 4 points this week. That tells you so much about the GOP. That's who they are. That's the ones who are not subscribing to that in the GOP are gone. They've left the party. Trump wants us, like those never Trumpers have left the party and are gone or have given in. He wants the rest of us to do the same thing. Either we give in to him or leave the country, especially people of color. Look, no one should be surprised with Donald Trump. He brought that crowd to that moment. Days and days of tweeting and saying, "Go back to your country. If you don't like it here, go back." And then he's stunned. I didn't like that. That's like a Klan leader after a rally going, "Well, I was uncomfortable. Their overuse of the N-word was a little off-putting." Come on. And Trump, and that, by the way, that analogy is by design. Trump is a wizard. He's a grand wizard. He is a white supremacist. There's no doubt he is. Now he's taken to a new level. And he's playing this game, this gaslighting bullshit today, and the media is dissecting it like it's a CSI thing. He is a white supremacist, and I am so pissed off at watching coverage of well-intentioned white pundits, I will say this, who are progressives on TV and ask questions about this, and they go through it like it's a discussion on taxes with the same dispassion. Well, Donald Trump can't have any legislative achievements, so he's playing now on racism, and he's going to try to, and they don't use the term racism, he's playing on the concerns of his base, and maybe it'll get worse. No. How about just coming out and saying, and this is why you need more people of color on TV talking about these issues. Because for us, it's not political. It's real life. It's our life. It's our lives. There are hate crimes and people killed in our communities for this kind of garbage. So you don't feel that. You're lucky. You have white privilege. God bless you. I have nothing against you for that. But we're the ones close to the fire. We're the ones suffering here. So when Donald Trump talks about this stuff here, this is very real. Ilhan Omar has a crosshairs on her back. There's no doubt there are people out there who want to kill her. Is there someone in Trump's world who will give up their life to kill someone for Donald Trump? Well, we saw the MAGA bomber answer that question for us. We saw in Charlottesville a guy, James Blake, kill Heather Heyer. Yes, there are people who will commit acts of violence in the name of Donald Trump. And he wants that. And we can talk about it later. We have a whole hour. We don't have a guest till 7:30. We have 1 hour from now, so I'll take a break. I want to hear from you. Fascism, one of the tools is violence. And I'll read a Madeleine Albright quote when we come back. And I tell you that, and I say it, as I've said often, I don't say it to scare, I say it to prepare. This is where we're heading. I'm not saying arm yourself, get ready for the fight. I'm saying being very aware. If a Trump rally is coming to your town, you're a person of color, be aware of that. Keep your loved ones inside if you have to, because this is ugly. And Donald Trump, these are like Klan rallies. Are there a few people of color in those events? Sure, there are. That's life. But listen to the words, send her back. Send a black woman back to Africa. That's what they were saying last night. That's what they were chanting last night. We know this is their greatest moment ever. A black Muslim woman back to Africa. That is great. Send brown people. You don't think it ends there, folks. You don't unleash this type of white supremacy and hatred and it ends with one person. It does not. They come for us. And at some point, we're going to either see the other women, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib at AOC, either continue to fight until there's actually an act of violence or self-censor and quiet themselves. And that should never even be an option. That should not be what's going on. In fact, I want to play, we'll come back. I'll play that. I just will leave you with this before we take a break. And then you're my guest for a whole hour because I really made special time. I want to hear from people on this very issue. Donald Trump today is saying, my base is all animated and worked up. They are. You give white supremacy to white victimhood, white supremacists, people concerned about demographic change, whatever their reason is, they're going to get worked up. But here's the reality. They were worked up in 2018. How many times the Trump campaign in the closing days of that midterm across the country and talking about immigration and giving red meat the same way? And what happened that midterm? And I remind you so that we know the facts, that I'm not being overly optimistic about what's going to happen. We not only flipped 40 House seats, we won, and I kept saying it was 8 million. I looked it up. It's actually, we won in raw votes by 10 million votes in the midterm. 10 million. And as CNN noted, that's the largest raw vote margin in a House midterm election ever. Don't forget, Hillary won the popular vote by 2.9 million votes. We won the House popular vote by 10 million votes. No electoral college saves you from that. So there are far more of us. And I will tell you one other thing. New polls today, forget Rasmussen. The other polls show Donald Trump at 42% approval rating. It might be distressing to see that 42% of Americans, our fellow Americans that we share this land with, are okay with this bigotry and racism and sexism. But look at the real breakdown. I always encourage you, look at strongly approve versus strongly disapprove. And the gap now is on our side of strongly disapprove over 20 points again. Over 20 points. That is the enthusiasm gap. That is what we had right before the midterms. That led us to a 10 million vote victory in popular votes. If we have that again, we win the White House, and I think we win the Senate. So Trump will do everything, anything. Nothing's off the table. I didn't expect him to go so full white supremacist this quickly in the campaign, to be blunt. I wrote about it last month for Daily Beast going, this is where we're going. I didn't expect it now. I thought it'd be in the fall or next year. But I want to hear from you. What did you take of the last 3 days of what you saw? And last night, send her back. No one believes Donald Trump's walk back. That's bullshit. So if you want to comment it, you can, but we know that's garbage. Trump was doing that for the cameras. So his base go, oh, he's not really racist. You see, he walked back his racist stuff. Come on. The stakes are really high for us. And this is the fight of our generation. Everyone's got to be in. We all contribute in our own way. Martin Luther King said, you can't run, you walk. If you can't walk, you crawl, whatever you got to do to move us forward. This is our time. Let's take a break. 866-997-4748. I'd love to hear from you after this. At this point, the question is not who connected to Donald Trump as a